Going on, guys? Mark here, just setting everything up for the video. So this video, I'm gonna explain kind of how my process on how I fixed my credit. So I'm gonna go through the things that I did to go from bankruptcy or even prior to bankruptcy to where I'm at today, and then how I'm going to get past what I'm at now to potentially get to a 720 before hopefully the middle of next fall semester. So during the holidays and next year, when the market's weaker, I can start purchasing assets um, to expand my rental portfolio. So if you don't know, you haven't seen my story, I kind of went over how I filed bankruptcy and how I got to where I'm at. Basically, I had 14 real estate assets in addition to 4 other rental properties, a total of 37 doors, I think it was. 14 of which were rentals, 13 were done or on their way out to being done, or up for sale or pending contract or completed. And then four of them were rentals, and one was still in the process of being completed. I had purchased almost 2 years before in 2018, or I'm sorry, yeah, 2018, and I still had it in 2020 or 2019 in the summer when I was filing my bankruptcy. Basically, what had happened is I had, over the course of 3 years in the military, 3.5 years of active, from the time I was 19 to the time I was 22 when I left, I was building my credit score. I started at $500. It ended up reaching $150,000 between a multitude of banks. And so what I had done, I had liquidated those through companies such as PayPal and other vendors in applying for loans and other sources of credit to use that to purchase on down payments on homes. Additionally, I had raised over $2 million in private capital from 4 other investors, of which we were purchasing properties together and splitting those things 50-50. That's how I was able to purchase 14 properties. And then my other 4 rentals, one was seller financed by the owner for nothing. And the other 3 were just 0% or 3.5% USDA, VA, FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae, whatever the other government entity was, backed mortgages, and I still have those. I thought I was going to lose them in my bankruptcy, but I didn't. The reason I went to bankruptcy rather than the reason I did Chapter 7 rather than 13 or debt consolidation or negotiating the debts and creating a trust account myself was because I had come up to the conclusion of from a business perspective, that the fastest way to repair my credit, get my businesses up and running, start producing revenue, and get back onto my feet to where I was prior, and then getting further potentially after I had reached that same goal, was to file Chapter 7. So originally I was going to do debt consolidation. I had a trust account set up. I was going to negotiate the debts. I was working with a third-party agency to negotiate those debts for me, as all I had to do was make a $1,500 payment to them. The way they explained it to me is I would have a $50,000 loan with them, paid over a course of 3 to 5 years. I was at a 3-year period, for $1,500 a month, which is, as most of you know, the size of a typical mortgage right now, depending on where you are at in the country and the value of your home. And I was also going to have to negotiate my debts. So they had negotiated most of them to 25% before I made any payments. Though I paid 6 months worth of payments, I realized that my debt was going nowhere. I was wasting my time. I was losing a shitload of money. My credit score was fucking tanking. I was at a 420. I realized that was not the best thing to do, so I canceled it. I got all of my money back. Didn't pay any of the debts. I ended up going to a bankruptcy attorney. I started with Chapter 13. I talked to a couple different attorneys and about what my situation was. Realized that a lot of my situation was over-explained and didn't really need to be made aware of because they were uncorrelated to the situation at hand, and they just thought I was stupid. And that's just me being naive. I was a 23-year-old male that didn't really know much. And so I started with a chapter 13, got it corrected, done, fixed everything, showed up to court, did all that stuff. The judge said, cool, no problem. He only has to give 25% of his debts away. But the thing is, he has 5 years with the government to make these payments to a trust account, and then we'll disperse that however we choose to. He's not going to be able to get a house, a car, or really a job in the financial sector until he's paid the 25% off. And I had to get 2 jobs to be able to make or show that I was able to make the income. I had to be employed to 2 jobs at the same time, making an average of $15 an hour, which is not hard. The issue is I was working 30 hours at one job in the mornings and then 30 hours overnight in the evenings or overnight. And I was in school in the middle of the day. So I was sleeping on average 2 to 4 hours at the time. And I was not able to functionally maintain that schedule longer than a month and a half. That's not the first time I've done something like that in life. And I knew I was not sustainably going to be able to keep up with that schedule for the remaining 5 or 6 years that I had, or 5 years that I would need. And then on top of that, I would have 5 years to pay this debt off. And I would have this lingering chapter 13 on my credit report. And then an additional 2 years to actually repair my credit. So then I was like, okay, what are my other options? Chapter 7 is a complete devastation of my portfolio in terms of credit report, but it gets rid of it immediately as soon as it's discharged, which can take anywhere between 3 to 6 months. And I'm immediately able to start purchasing assets if I have the capital, which means I can use other people's money. And I can get an asset mortgage if they choose not to use my credit. So most hard money lenders I was able to still work with. As long as they didn't ask me about my bankruptcy, I was able to purchase a home. If I had a portfolio lender that saw that I had a significant amount of assets worth below 65% of current market value, and I was experiencing a significant increase because of an uptrend in the market, specific to Arizona, I could actually get a portfolio loan even with a 520 credit score. A lot of times they would not look at my credit score as a determining factor, but rather the asset itself. So after doing that kind of due diligence and going through my circumstances, I immediately moved to a chapter 7 after about 3 months of sitting in chapter 13. I didn't actually make my first payment in my chapter 13. I went to court, did all the paperwork, was getting ready to make my first payment. And in like 2 or 3 days before my first payment, I said, okay, attorney, let's move to a chapter 7. This is pretty dumb. I'm not going to do this. It's not going to make any sense for my financial success and any way, shape, or form will it benefit me. Yes, a chapter 7 is on my report for up to 7 to 10 years. And it is on my, LexisNexis report or whatever. But it is I will be able to purchase assets with virtually no money down in about 2 years. So my thought process was, okay, if I had the capital, I can go purchase a house the day after. Or if I wanted to get in the financial industry, as long as I could explain my situation and how my business blew up in my face, I would be able to. So I had, after it was all said and done, liquidated $2.8 million of assets. I gave everybody back the money that they had invested with me through the value of the assets that were finished and up for sale at the time. I had $158,000 of personal debt. In addition to that, I had $25,000 of student loan debt, and then I didn't have a car payment because I basically paid it with a line of credit in my business entity. And looking back on it now, I wish I would have found a way to add my businesses that had a total of $40,000 of lines of credit that I could have utilized for business purposes. And I wish I would have paid off my student loan of $25,000 because I could have just added that bankruptcy to the debt of money that I owed and never had to pay it back, and I wouldn't have student loans today. I currently have $25,000 in student loans. I have a significant amount of money that I don't owe, but I have available to me should I want to owe it. in forms of loan offers, mortgage offers, credit lines, credit cards, and just relationships in general. Additionally, I have a $9,000 debt that I owe um, for my car that I purchased immediately after filing bankruptcy. In fact, it was well, not immediately. It was about 6 months because I had a car, like I said, I had purchased, paid off. I sold it to my brother for $500. There was a bill of sale. That's how I was able to keep it. He kept it in his name. I rented it back to him. I basically rented it back to myself by paying all of the maintenance and upkeep, and that's how I was able to keep it. Um, that's that's what I had figured out I was able to do legally to be able to keep that car, not have to sell it. Not that it was worth anything, anyways. The engine was replaced, the transmission was damaged, the suspension system needed to be fixed, and I never fixed it. I didn't really care. It got me from point A to point B. It was a 20-year-old car that really didn't matter at that time, so I moved on. I That's how I was able to keep it. There was a lot of physical deference or issues that I was not taking care of, so it was worthless. Actually, I ended up selling it about $700 more than what I could have actually traded it on the market for. So win for me, I guess. So immediately filing Chapter 7, it didn't actually get discharged until February. So I switched in November of 2019, I believe, or 2020 or something like that, 2019, from a Chapter 13 to a Chapter 7. I went to court in January. My debt was discharged in February, and February 2020, I did nothing. I sat around. I did nothing. I went to school. I focused on getting student loans and basically using student loans to pay off student loans at a 0% interest rate. So I would borrow a student loan of $3,500 and I would pay back the student loan of $3,500 over the course of a couple months. So I had that going for me. A lot of people don't actually have that opportunity to. So that's one leg up I had, I think, compared to other people. Additionally, I had about $900 saved up that I knew I could use for secured cards. I personally didn't use secured cards, but that is one thing you can do. So in this video, I'm going to show you if you are someone that does, have bad credit, but you don't necessarily, maybe you have bad credit because you have debts, stuff that like uh, maybe you owe $500 to a medical payment or $40,000 to a medical payment, or you've been evicted and you owe all of the rent, legal fees, and other stuff. So you have $3,000 in rent that's due because you got evicted. Maybe you are part of this pandemic and you went an entire 6 months without ever paying debt, and you live in California and you have $12,000 in debt. Eventually, you're going to have to pay that back. The first thing you need to do to fix or repair your credit is understand what is delinquent on your credit profile, and then start negotiating those debts down or file bankruptcy if that's what you have to do. A lot of people say bankruptcy is the worst possible decision you could ever make. And in my opinion, there are two major things that are involved when making a legitimate decision like that. And that comes down to where are your morals at? And is this a strategically right decision for you? Because you can negotiate the debt. That is the right, you could do one of two. You could do one of three things. You could pay the debt back in full, fix your credit report, watch it go up instantaneously, or you could negotiate the debt, take a significantly longer amount of time to repair your credit instantaneously. But once they've charged it off and said that you've made your payment, bam, your credit score goes up, even if they took 25% of that total debt. For instance, relating to the pandemic issue of not paying your rent and then getting evicted finally, you owe $12,000. If you pay 25% of that, or even a sixth of that, of $2,000, well, they may have taken their loss because they know they're probably going to get it from pandemic assistance through the government, and you've made an effort to make a portion of the payment. They remove it from your credit report, your credit score goes up, bam. But the issue is that now creditors are going to see that you made a partial payment, not the full amount. Boom, now it still looks bad because they look at your trade lines as a factor of who you are fundamentally. Additionally, this is actually just a form of discrimination that continues to go on, which is your Nexus Lexis report, which specifically describes where you've lived, what your criminal history is like, the type of loans you've gotten, whether or not you're in the military, whether or not you have a college degree, what jobs you've applied to, virtually everything about who you are, what you've done, and your achievements is on your Nexus Lexis report. It is quite literally the definition of your profile. And there are a lot of businesses, insurance companies, lending institutions, mortgage companies that actually look at that and make decisions based off of your criminal history, or if you're a public figure, whether or not you've been publicly diminished or not. And if you've been a victim of defamation of character. Hell, I've heard people that were getting multi-million-dollar home loans that were denied because their husband was a fucking criminal that went to jail. So, or their significant other was a drug dealer, and that's how they made their money. And then when they went to jail, they committed suicide, and then the spouse got the death benefit, paid off all of the ex-spouse's or the dead spouse's debt, but had a tremendous amount of money that they had come into because of a death benefit. So even in that situation, that person was still denied the value, a home that they had absolutely no problem paying because they had a multi-million-dollar business that they had created on their own, completely irrelevant from their dead significant other. But because of their significant other's past and political history and news involved, they were denied a home loan. So keep that in mind, that you need to understand what's on your LexisNexis report so you're able to rebuttal those, or write a rebuttal to the lending institution. Personally, I'm becoming an attorney so I could press charges against those unfair bias, which is really a form of prejudice, which should be illegal, which is why I'm becoming an attorney so I can fucking sue them, because it's wrong. It's not really a legal practice, but it is. So fucking weird gray loophole. Additionally, once you fixed your credit, or once you've paid down your debts, you understand what's on your credit report, you've viewed your credit report, which you can get at myfreecreditreport.com annually, one time for free without impacting your credit report. You can find out every single trade, everything that's reporting, everything that's up to date, all of your mortgages, all of your loans, all of that other stuff. Just like for me, I have my car loan and I have my 3 mortgages that are on my credit report. In addition to that, I have one seller finance note, which does report that I'm making a minimum payment, but does not specify the amount of money that I owe because it's a private transaction. So, once you've understood your credit report, you can start looking into things like secured credit cards. So once you've paid off your debt or negotiated them down, or maybe you're not going to negotiate them down, you're just going to let them fall off your credit report after 7 years, you can go to a secured credit card company, and you can basically walk into, it's like walking into a bank with $300,000 or $300 and saying, give me a $300 credit card, or a credit card valued at $300. So this is exactly what I did when I started. So I typed in secured credit cards because I knew secured credit cards was a thing. And the first thing that I came up with was OpenSky. OpenSky is great if you've never had credit and you have $300 burning a hole in your pocket that you don't need at the time. Simply open the account, spend you don't even have to spend any money, because it's got an annual fee and they charge that to your account. The annual fee is about $50. So you make your annual fee payment and then you go open another unsecured credit card in the same amount or balance after they've reported your payment, and then you close this one. So typically that's what I've done that with other people when I've consulted them on fixing their credit report or building their credit score. is I've had them open OpenSky. So I typically tell them 3 credit cards is the maximum amount you should have when you're starting to rebuild your credit, because anything after that just actually negatively impacts you, because you have all of these credit cards in multiple companies and they're all reporting simultaneously at the same time, which actually negatively impacts you. Additionally, it's harder to keep track of your usage ratio. And they see that you have 17 credit cards with all, for instance, a $100 credit limit. So they're going to say, oh, this guy has $1,700 worth of credit because he's got 17 credit cards and they're each $100, but he only makes $0. Why would we offer him more credit? Because he's just accepting stuff like crazy. So that actually looks bad. It does, having multiple credit cards. So what I would recommend is three credit cards that are secured. If you have a shitty credit score, use them for things like your gas, your groceries, stuff like that. But make sure that if you have a $300 credit score or a $300 credit card, that you are staying in the 30% of your utilization, whether that be in one credit card or all of them put together, because you don't want to exceed one credit card more than 30%, and you don't want to exceed your entire portfolio more than 30%. The reason is because that actually negatively impacts your credit score unless you pay it off immediately after using it. And oftentimes it doesn't post, and some credit card companies won't even let you pay it if you don't have a balance. And if it's not posted, you don't have a balance, so there's no way to make the payment. It's really difficult to beat their timing and beat their statement. And a lot of times you can't even make a payment unless they have a statement, which actually forces you in a position to use it responsibly, basically. The next one I would use is First Progress. That's another one that I used. And then Self is another program that you can use. This is a great program. Basically, you're borrowing an annuity with a bank, and then you have to make payments to that annuity every month. It's like borrowing a loan to build your credit. And then after you've completed your requirement or your contract, then you get that money back and you can use it for whatever you want. So basically they borrow money for you to put into an annuity for 6 months to a year. You make the payments on the annuity, and then they give you that money back at the end, minus whatever their fees are. And what I would recommend is doing something like doing Visa and MasterCard. So I actually this was one of my first secured cards. This was one of my first secured cards, and then OpenSky was. So OpenSky, First Progress, and then Applied Bank. Those were my first secured cards that I used initially when I was transitioning from secured to unsecured credit. So once I had my secured cards, I had $900. I spent that money on basically getting the cards, and then I spent an additional like $150 to make those payments. After that statement was done, I bought groceries again, made sure I split the bill up. So I was spending, my bill was $150, I put it on the 3 cards. So it was like a sixth of the total credit usage, which looked good. I waited till it reported. I paid it off in full because I was going to use cash anyways. And then that took me an additional 3 months to do. So from February to May, I borrowed student loans. From May to July, I used secured credit cards, and I started at 423 was my average FICO score, which is a culmination of three major credit bureaus. That's TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. They take the average or aggregate of all 3 and give you a FICO score. So I used my student loans to propel me, and then I used secured cards to propel me so I could start getting in secured lines again. And then after that, I started applying for their unsecured versions. So I got an unsecured credit balance of $300 for this one. OpenSky doesn't have an unsecured version. And then I got a $600 unsecured with Merit Bank or Merrick Bank. And then there was another one that I had gotten as well. And I'll just show you what those were for me. And then I had gotten three. Once I had gotten three, yeah, so here they are. First Premier Bank, First Saving, and then I got one with Applied Bank as well. These were some of my first three cards that I had opened up around August of 2020. As soon as I opened those, some of these have annual fees, some of them didn't. But as soon as I opened those, I went and opened a Walmart credit card so I could actually build my credit by buying my groceries. I'm going to go to Walmart anyways. Why not build my credit to do so? Because I have to buy my groceries, and sometimes I buy clothes. I buy my shitty work shoes there because they're fucking $5. So, I'm going to go there. I'm going to spend money anyways. Why not spend money and build my credit? So that's exactly what I did. Once I moved from secured cards to unsecured cards in the same companies, I closed my secured cards down, got my $900 back, put it back in the bank, opened a Walmart credit card, started using it for my groceries, not exceeding $150 with a $300 limit, paying it back or overpaying because they actually allowed that to happen. And then started, because these have annual fees of $50, paid those payments. And then as soon as I did that, basically I did that in an entire month period from basically August to September. By the time I got to September, I had received offer from Blaze, an offer from Indigo, an offer for Credit One, and they were all $300 limits. And so when you receive those offers in the mail, basically what that's saying is we want your business, open a credit card with us, close the loan you have with the other company. I am on a mission to raise $175,000 worth of capital, which is $175,000 worth of capital and credit. Once I've reached that goal, my objective is to be able to utilize 30% of it or transition into my business banking account. So if I were to file Chapter 11 or Chapter 7, it would not hit me personally, or Chapter 11 in that business, it would not hit me personally, and I would not be personally held responsible. So I applied for these because that's my personal goal. And then I utilized them. I alternated every month. I kept track of how much I owed. I created a spreadsheet on all the business accounts that I have, so on and so forth. And then I started getting offers like this. First Savings sent me an offer. Mercury sent me an offer. Mission Lane sent me an offer. And as soon as they sent me an offer, because they were 3 times more than what I was originally using or more, I started applying for those, and I kept these because I don't know why. It's when you remove credit from your history, or you close an account, if it's not paid off or you haven't paid it off, it actually negatively affects your credit score because you have a balance and you close the account, which means in the creditor's eyes, you have no intention on paying this back. Around the same time in September, I ended up buying a car, and they used my SageStream report instead of my actual FICO. So your SageStream is just one of many 5 major credit bureaus that are used. SageStream is a piece of shit company. I wish they would go out of business because they're not held to the same standards as other major companies. They're significantly less resourced. They're always behind, and their credit the way that they report their credit is so much worse than the way that companies like Experian, Equifax report. TransUnion's another piece of shit company that should be out of business or changed or updated or fixed because they're just trash. They never report anything accurately. You're always having to fix something. They're always 20 to 30 points behind the other fucking credit bureaus, and it's pathetic, in my opinion. But that's just my personal opinion. I said we all have those. And they're just not globally used. Why would you be a credit bureau for personal companies but not businesses? I don't understand that. Equifax and Experian are not only personal credit reporting agencies, but they're also business credit reporting agencies. Why are we using TransUnion when it doesn't make any sense to me. I think they're a stupid, useless company, very similar to SageStream. But then again, there are over 4,000 credit bureaus and only 6 of them are federally recognized. So take that as you will. They're all useless aggregate information tools to basically prejudge you off of a risk factor or statistical analysis. So tangent aside, once I got to these, I started applying. So in September, I applied for my car loan, and then I got a phone call about the pandemic affecting mortgage institutions, specifically VA institutions, and that it didn't matter what your credit report was in terms of history. So like they didn't care if you had a foreclosure, they didn't care if you had a bankruptcy. The only thing they cared about was your score 620, and did you have the income to show that you could make your payment should the circumstance arise? And so what I did is I got another job in September because of the pandemic. I was able to work full time, ended up making $45,000 a year at a company. Set that job offer for salaried position to my lending agency, and was able to reduce my rate from a 375 at $184,000 amortized at a 25-year note on a VA mortgage to a 3.71%. I'm sorry, a 2.71% amortized at the same time. So it was the same schedule. It's 5 years into this amortization schedule. So I did 20-year amortization schedule, but because I owed less, I paid down $20,000. I was at 164. They added $6,000 worth of loan fees. So now I was at 170. I refinanced for 170 at 20 years. I dropped my payment down $200. At the same time, values were increasing, in addition to taxes, which meant that rents were following. So at the same time, I was increasing my tenant rents. So I was able to take a cash flowing asset from cash flowing $300 a month to cash flowing over $700 a month because of appreciation in rents, and the ability to refinance my mortgage and save $200 a month. So I effectively added $200 in value by refinancing and increasing my rents on that particular property. So that being said, I was able to do more, but that same time, so I bought a car, started a refinance process and applied for all of these larger credit lines, all in the month of I added this card, and I believe it was this card. I added those 3 cards in the month of September. I bought a car and I started a refinance process of my home. And at this point in time, when I refinanced my home, I had them pull my credit with a hard inquiry. And they said I was at 620. I had a 620 FICO score. So I started the year at a 420 and I had effectively brought it up 200 points. Obviously, when I filed bankruptcy, it was at a 420. When I filed bankruptcy, all of my debts were immediately paid off or discharged because of the bankruptcy. As soon as that hit my report, it impacted me in a negative way, but it also rose or brought my credit score up to a 530. And then I lost some points because it's a negative factor. I applied for some student loans, and then I actually started in February of 2020 with like a 521 or 3 or something, because I had raised my credit score when my debts were discharged. So a lot of people think that your credit goes down when you file bankruptcy, but it actually goes up. And so I was able to raise my credit score immediately because I filed bankruptcy. I paid off all these debts, no longer reported my credit in a negative way. But I had, this judgment on my account, basically, that would never go away. Well, it does. It goes away after 10 years, but who's to say it's still it's reported or not. Either way, it's going to affect my credit for the next 10 years. It's only going to affect my purchasing power if I allow it to, though. So basically from September to going back to fixing my credit report in the year 2020, from September to basically December, I was utilizing my credit report. I was trying to get a better job. I was, working on getting a $45,000 a year salary, saving some money, using my credit cards, just natural stuff. So I haven't really been impacting my credit in the same way since December of from September of 2020 to January of 2020. I basically had just been using my credit cards and paying stuff down and utilizing and making payments to my debt to show that I'm responsible. But I basically brought my credit score up from September to January of 2021, up about 21 points. So from the time that I started my refinance to the time that it actually fucking closed in March of 2021, I actually was in a position where my credit started at a 620, my FICO, but it went up to a I believe it was a 650 FICO score. So in that 3 or 4 month period, because I had basically gone as far as my credit would allow me to go, up until that point, I had basically gone from a 520, utilizing student loans and paying them off, utilizing secured cards, paying them off, and then getting normal unsecured cards, and then getting to that point. From February to basically September, I had risen my score almost 100 points. I don't know why that happened so quickly. I think it was a combination of the fact that I bought a car. I was showing that I was rebuilding my credit score. I was making smaller incremental payments, keeping my credit profile lower. And then I was trying to do authorized users with family members and then removing myself and then adding myself and then removing myself. So I think that there was a combination of factors that went into that. But basically, I had risen my credit score up 100 points. In September to like I said, March of 2021, from September of 2020 to March of 2021, my credit score hadn't increased very much, but I did increase the amount of lines that I had, and I changed the way I was applying for credit cards. So I stopped applying for credit cards aggressively and only started applying for the ones that came into the mail that offered over $1,000 in credit lines, or said they would double it after 2 or 3 months of having the line. And as a matter of fact, I don't owe this anymore. I paid that off a month ago, or not a month ago, like 3 weeks ago. Basically paid it off when I got it. And then I started applying for First Savings, Mercury, and Mission Lane. And then I got an offer for Aspire, Olo, and Merrick Bank all at the same time and applied for those. And now I have a total of like $10,000 of credit card debt that I don't owe. I just have the opportunity to use for whatever I want, and it's there. And this is how I'm keeping track of all this stuff. I don't actually know that I can get all of those American Express cards. I'm just trying to utilize them eventually. I will probably change some of this stuff to Discover. There are 4 major credit card companies, 2 of which are more prominent. And this is what I learned in my process too. MasterCard is a company that sets up credit cards or offers credit cards or even like debit cards for major banks or financial institutions. MasterCard is significantly more easy to attain credit with, and they have a model where they focus on riskier people at the lower class of income than Visa does. Visa, it's a lot harder to get Visa credit cards. I've noticed that if it wasn't for the fact that I was pre-qualified and they actually, meant that pre-qualification was there. For instance, I applied for an Amazon credit card and I was declined because of my bankruptcy, not because of my credit score, but because of my bankruptcy. I've applied 4 times this year. Once in September. I'm not this year, but in a 12-month period. Once in September, once in January, once in March after my house had closed, and then once in April, because I didn't have anything else negatively impacting me. And every single time I have been declined because of the fact that I have a bankruptcy and it's only 18 months old. And for whatever reason, even though an 18-month-old credit card or 18-month-old bankruptcy is something that really has no bearing on my financial situation anymore, they feel it is a negative factor into lending me $300 fucking dollars, even though I have all of these other limits that show that I'm more than capable of handling my debt. In fact, I could probably handle about $5,000 worth of debt every month, minus my cash, including my cash flow from my rental properties. So that being said, some institutions are like that, and it's because that they work with Visa, and Visa is more stringent on how they review their applicants. Unless it's a secured card, then they're more likely to approve you because you're giving them money. The difference is they're going to charge you 24% to borrow your own fucking money. So pay cash for things instead, or prove that you are useful and actually pay your debts on time, even though it's money you gave them to borrow back, and build your credit. So from basically March until now, I've been raising my credit score 10 points a month. I'm at my highest is a 670. My lowest is a 646, which is TransUnion, which doesn't make sense to me because they show that all of my debts are paid off. I don't owe any money. They have my discharge on my paperwork. I've looked at my credit report, and there's nothing negatively impacting my credit report, but for whatever fucking reason, it still won't go up much. It goes up like 3 points a month. It doesn't go down, it just doesn't go up. They are very stringent on either what they receive or the fact that they're just not reporting their shit, or they're just unfair about how they review payments. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. But somehow my Experian and Equifax score are significantly higher. Like I said, one's at 660, the other's at 660 or 670, and TransUnion's just still at fucking 646, which I don't get, but whatever. So because of those 3, they take the aggregate. My FICO score is a 667. But the next thing to do, for me at least, that I plan to do is probably call TransUnion, find out specifically why it's incorrect. If there is any deficiencies, call them, find out what they are, get them removed, because I don't have any outstanding debts. I don't have any medical payments. I don't have any judgments. I don't have any evictions. I don't have anything that can negatively affect my credit score and keep it going down. I don't owe any money to credit cards. I'm ahead of all of my payments. I've never missed or been late on anything more than 5 days. And the only thing I have on my record is a bankruptcy, and that's not enough to negatively impact my score. So I plan on calling TransUnion. Once I do a TransUnion, I'll probably make an update to this video. And then once I figure out what their retarded issue is, negotiate it, explain the situation, correct it, fix their fucking deficiencies because they're a retarded agency. And immediately following that, I'm going to get a trade line. So the way trade lines work are very interesting. So what I did, so going back to once you've gotten your secured cards, next you look up bad credit card or bad credit cards. 5 of the best credit repair companies. Best credit cards for poor credit. And then after you get your credit cards for poor credit, then you really should be applying for the next level credit cards. So there are levels in the way there are levels to fixing your credit in terms of credit cards. There are like 5 or 6 levels to credit cards. There's a couple of YouTube videos that are awesome for that. You can look at, but I'll get to those in a little bit. So the next one is, so like these are the ones that I have that are for apparently bad credit. And these are the credit cards that you can apply for. They have 0 monthly fee, the 0 annual fee or whatever. Great credit cards. Most of them, as you can tell, are master. And these are all credit cards that you can apply for. Most of them are unsecured, that will likely approve you after you've established a secured credit card. So once you do that, you have these for a couple months. And what a lot of people say is that you think that because you see all these books, you read all these books or whatever, and then you can fix your credit in a couple of months. But that's not true. That's not how that works. It actually takes a while. So if you're expecting stuff to happen in under 90 days, I'm going to tell you you're stupid, and that's unlikely, and it's not going to happen. It's a lengthy process. To go from a 420 and owing a shitload of money to going to a 720 in under 2 years, if you think that's going to happen, you're mistaken, because that's just not how it works. The way that credit works is actually establishing a good, responsible profile on the type of person you are. And that can take up to 2 years, because you have to have consistency in your payments and responsibility with your profile. And you can't do that off of 90 days worth of payments. You can't create a fake profile. That's not how it works. Sure, you can add yourself to trade lines, but as I'm going to show you, once you've gotten these cards, which is the next step, once you've reached about 660, 670, the next possible step to take to accelerate and get to the next level of credit cards is to really do a trade line. And even a trade line, the way they work is very temporary. It's only going to show up on your credit report for up to like 3 or 4 weeks. So I'll show you what that looks like. What they say about trade lines and how it really works. So the way a trade line works is like it's very simple. I'd rather just show you something that I found on the internet, so you can see for yourself. So I saw it the other day. Let's see if I can find it again. Basically, what this thing says and shows is that trade lines are basically you adding yourself as an authorized user to someone that has more than like $5,000 in established credit. They've had 2 years of history that's really been really good. They've never exceeded 30%, and it backdates a while. But basically, this is what I was trying to show you. Trade lines actually only increase your credit by 40 points for 1. 2, it's an additional 20 points. 3, it's an additional 10 points. So this is why I said once you get to about 660 to 680 with your credit report, you're in the good standard, not fair. There are several different standards in which companies rate you, but this is how you go to the excellent category in lending institutions' eyes. Once you get to that 660 to 680 range, really you should be paying $500,000, about $1,500 to get your credit up. And so there are a couple institutions that do this. And this is exactly what I plan to do. Trade lines for sale, trade line supply company. Boost Score 101. This is another company that's good. So buy a trade line. So after you've, borrowed money, whatever, started to rebuild your credit, so on and so forth. Then you can start purchasing trade lines. All right, then you can start, once you've started the process of negotiating your debts, you get a secured credit card. You do that for a couple months, make the actual fee payments, pay off your debts, get unsecured cards by the same companies, cancel your secured cards, get your money back, and then start utilizing them, not exceeding 30% of your total credit profile on each individual card. Pay it off every single month, sometimes twice a month if they have a double billing statements period, and then apply for personal loans too. The reason you apply for personal loans is because they have an amortization schedule. If you borrow $5,000 with an amortization schedule of if they have an amortization schedule of, let's say 3 years, and you didn't really use the money, you just did it to build your credit, make 3 payments, pay the interest on that, pay it off in full. Sure, it'll cost you 60, 70 bucks, but you fixed your credit. And you prove to the agencies that even though they gave you $5,000, you can pay it off whenever the fuck you want. That'll actually give you larger credit lines because they'll see that you can handle more debt. A lot of that stuff is also based off of your credit profile. If you have a 720, most agencies will just ask you how much you make. They won't ask to verify it. Once you've given them, say, $100,000, understand that is financial fraud. But is it negligence on their part as well? Abso-fucking-lutely, because they asked for a credit report and your money. There's nothing to say that they can't, unless they actually asked for it. There's nothing to say that you actually didn't or did. You can debate that in court. And then say you made 100 grand, they'll give you $10,000 just because you have a 720 fucking credit score. So that's how I actually started building my credit, not actually committing fraud, but I was making 100 grand and I had a 720 credit score, and I just kept going to fucking companies and say, what will you give me? What will you give me? What will you give me? I want a 0%. I want this. I want that, because I had an excellent credit score. So that once you've done this, you buy a trade line. You say, okay, it reports at this time. So if these two report at the same time, boom, on the 20th or the 21st of June, if these report on that same time, I should go apply for a $42,000 or $40,000 credit line. This will increase my credit score to, since I'm at 667, a 700, because I added 2. It's going to increase my credit score to a 710. This is temporary. This is only going to last until the 27th. It's only going to last, 710 is only going to last until the 22nd of June. Once this goes away, it's going to go to a 700 again, and then it'll last until the 27th, and then I'll go back to a 667. The reason you would do this is to get the credit limit that they have here of 45,000 or 46,558. I think that's a load of shit and not true, but it's possible. There are weird credit limits. Maybe this is his line of credit, or maybe this is what he currently has available, and he has some money that he borrowed on it for whatever. These are secondary industries. They're just the last 4 of the credit card or whatever. So keep that in mind. These are other people's credit profile that this business is specifically using to put your name on as an authorized user. So once you've done that, this is going to raise your credit score. Sometimes it does stay when you removed it, because what it shows is you've paid it off. So if this person has a balance of 30%, you remove it, that'll actually raise your score once it's removed. Once you're removed as an authorized user from this account, that'll actually raise your credit score. So after you've done that, at that point, it's up to you to do whatever you want with your credit, because you've essentially fixed it. That's how I have gone from a 420 and owing all of this debt to a 667 and growing, and how I plan to get to a 720. I will hit a 720 like I showed you with, can you add too many trade lines? I will probably hit a 720. My objective is to hit it before July or August, before the school year starts. So again, I can have this stuff, the capital that I need to start flipping houses, or proof of capital that I need so I can co-sign or guarantee my business's loans. Part of this channel explains how I'm going to be building business credit, but right now my focus is building my personal credit, because without personal credit, can't have business credit. Because if you're not doing business, how are you going to guarantee a loan? You're not, because you don't have personal credit. And the safety and well-being and health of your business doesn't actually come from whether or not your business is successful, especially if you're working in your business, simultaneously working on your business. You're a fundamental employee that provides credit reports for your business. So keep an eye out for these updates. I'm probably going to either buy this today or tomorrow. My next videos, probably, at least on credit, is probably going to be a follow-up to how trade lines have affected my entity, or affected me, my personal credit profile, and what I was able to get and what I wasn't able to get. After that, I'll probably do a follow-up video on what it was like when it was removed and if it stayed or not. So keep that in mind. Keep an eye out. Hope you guys are doing well with this. Hope this stuff is informational. These are just strategies that I have been using. They're not necessarily foolproof, but they actually do work. So hope to see you guys around later.